Brilliant.
Okay, let's get underway. So like I was saying, you are a part of a new series that I'm doing with female entrepreneurs, which I am just so excited for. We have done one episode so far, which was super fun. And I'm just so excited for the amazing women that I have stacked up to do this series. So thank you so much for being here today, Samantha. I am so grateful. And I'm so excited to dive in with you today because you are a manifestation queen. And I love that stuff. I just love that we can use manifestation and energetics to our power. I am a huge believer in how much mindset actually does matter. And there's only so much action and do that you can take before you really need to shift and align and make sure that you are vibrating at the frequency that the money is, the clients are, the business results, all of that. So I think it's so important to bring this into this space on my podcast as well. I love systems and I love Google Calendar and I love all of those like systemized thing and strategy, but I do love the mindset. So I'm super excited for your episode. But in terms of an intro, I'd love to hand it over to you. If you could just a bit of an intro in terms of like who you are, where you're from. I mean, you'll hear an accent soon, so you'll get a bit of a gauge on that. But yeah, just if you could share that, that would be amazing.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. Honestly, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm so excited for this episode and to get into all the juicy stuff that we're going to talk about today. So, yeah, I'm Samantha and I'm from the UK, in case you didn't guess from my accent. And I'm a manifestation mentor and a life coach. And really, I specialize in supporting biz babes to release those mental blocks around self-worth and abundance so they can fully manifest the financial freedom that they desire in their lives and business. And yeah, I'm so passionate about helping other biz babes in this area.
Amazing. So how did you end up like in business? Have you always been in this space? Like how did you end up as an online coach? I'd love to hear about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's one of those things that I feel like you kind of need to kind of almost like in a nutshell, but I will try and kind of like dip into all like the little areas of the journey because obviously, as you know, with any journey, it's like there's so many different windy roads and paths that kind of lead you to where you are. And for me, it was like starting out in psychology. So that's where I did my degree. And it was a very much kind of psychology background that I had. And then I decided to start following that kind of academic route. So I was going down the kind of mental health route. I did a master's in like mental health and clinical psychology. And I kind of thought I'd end up going maybe into like being a doctorate, doing a doctorate and like helping people and being a qualified psychologist in that way. And I think the kind of underlying kind of drive and passion that was kind of behind this was the fact that I wanted to help people. And I think so many kind of people have that like urge where they want to make a difference, they want to impact people and change people's lives and not really sure how they're going to go about that, if that makes sense. So for me, I had never even heard of coaching, and I was not even into personal development at that point. It was completely like foreign to me. And so whilst I was working in the NHS, I was supporting people with like mental health, CBT, using CBT strategies. And I was kind of in this place where I was feeling a little bit like I wasn't really truly valued. I wasn't really fully doing what I was supposed to be doing, right? Like I was making a difference and helping people, but I didn't feel like I was in the right place. And that's when I started to really go within and start looking at kind of other avenues. And I found like life coaching, started diving deep into personal development, and then kind of came back to manifestation. Like manifestation was something I'd heard of several years ago, as everyone probably has heard, like, you pick up The Secret or you hear something about it. And it was very much sort of there in the background, and it kind of came and found its way back into my life. And that's where really things started to change for me, because I decided, well, actually, I'd quite like to do this kind of like give this coaching a go and see what can happen, really. And I like qualified as a life coach. But even during that, when I was life coaching, I was like, my pillar is like manifestation. Like I really want to help people with this kind of energetic side and really truly understanding themselves inside out and their mindsets and how they can manifest and create their dream lives. That was really where my heart was and my passion was. So eventually I just took the leap and decided, you know what, I'm actually going to follow my heart and teach on this. And yeah, I've never looked back.
I love that you were so aligned with like just following what felt good for you and like, listening to what you were passionate about and following where that ended you. Like, I know it's so easy for us to get so caught up in what we're doing now and I went to uni as well. So I know that feeling of going to uni and thinking that your life was going to go in one direction. And then just like having this tiny voice inside of you that's like, no, you're made for more, or there's something else out there. And then actually having the trust in yourself to follow that voice. And I know I've got so many listeners on here who do listen to that voice. But for those who just feel a little bit stuck, like they know they've got a different calling, they know they're made for more, but they're just feeling stuck. I'd love to know what your mindset shifts were like and what you experienced when you were going through those shifts, and maybe some things that you work through yourself to trust yourself and just listen to your intuition and know that you do want to do something different and you're prepared to listen and do something different.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a big thing like to explore and dive into. And I think the first thing that kind of came to my mind is really when I discovered and truly understood the difference between like the voice of the ego and the voice of intuition. So for me, as so many people do, I was so identified with the voice of the ego. Like that was how I kind of led my life, and it's how so many of us lead our lives. And if for anyone who just kind of doesn't know what the ego is or anything like that, I'll just quickly give like a definition. Essentially, the ego is that side of us. It's that kind of socially so the side of us that cares about what people think, the side of us that kind of is on the fear button and will release fear when you think about changing your life. So when anyone wants to make a change, maybe you want to start that like dream business or even other changes in your life, you want to get healthy, right? You have that voice inside your head that's like doesn't want you to go down that route, because essentially what it wants is to keep you safe. It wants to protect you, and where you are right now has kept you safe, right? Because you're alive, your heart's still beating, everything's good. So for the ego, that side of us, it's solely interested in keeping us safe. And I think what I sort of realized on my journey was actually understanding that voice and going, hang on a minute, like why am I so kind of caught up in what other people think or where I should be in my life? And I think definitely whilst I was working within like the NHS and I was working with mental health, there was a part of me that was like, well, I'm doing the right thing. Like I'm doing the thing that, is society, like is classed as normal in society standards, if that makes sense. And that kind of work, like, whereas coaching and stuff was completely out there and completely like almost not as, what's the word, mainstream. And I think it was sort of realizing for me that biggest shift was, hang on a minute, like what am I listening to here? Like, why am I so caught up in what other people think? Why am I so caught up in the path and where I should be or where I should be going? And what do I truly want? And it's a simple switch of where you actually go within and realize if you have that other voice inside of you that's telling you to do something, that's telling you you need to go after that dream, you need to go after that desire, it's just tuning that up a little bit and being brave to tune that up, because essentially we're running our lives through that other ego voice, that other voice that's telling us what we should and shouldn't do. But actually, if you can just be brave and turn that down and just go within, just start asking yourself the questions of, actually, what do I want? Like, where do I see myself going? Like, what do I see for my life? Like most people, I think, especially like if you're not in the personal development mode and not in business and stuff, most people don't even necessarily like have a vision. Like most people just don't always picture like, oh, where do I want to be in like 5 years? Like, what do I actually want things to look like? Most people are kind of just living life where they're just kind of going through the motions a little bit, like, living for the weekend and planning holidays, but not really having like long-term goals and long-term plans and long-term visions. And I think for me, it was realizing actually I'm creating my life here. Like when you said about mindset shifts, it was that switch. I was like, I'm creating my life. Like everything I'm doing is kind of perpetuating this reality. So it's like, actually, what do I want? What do I want to create? What do I want to see in my future? And started kind of dialing up that notch on that intuition and just going within and asking those questions. Because I think people think like, oh, I don't know how to listen to my intuition. I don't really know like what I want. But actually, if you can just be with yourself and sit quietly and take pen to paper and just allow yourself to sit in that and sit with yourself, you're going to be able to hear the answers. But it's reducing that fear of sitting with yourself and listening, because a lot of people are scared to kind of listen in case they realize, actually, I want something completely different to how I'm living my life, right? And then that's really, really scary to actually admit that to yourself. But it's being brave, as I said, and realizing, well, actually, isn't it going to be better to go after something that you truly want and you truly desire than sitting in your life and then 10 years time going, damn, why didn't I do that thing? Like, why didn't I just go for it? Why didn't I just take a chance? And I think, yeah, as I was saying, like, just listening to that voice, because it's not going to guide you wrong. Like, it's always going to tell you and take you to the path that's going to light you up the most.
Yeah, I love that you said it's just about giving yourself permission to dream. And I love that you
Mm,
do simplify it in that you've said just decide like how you want your life to look and just figure it out and go for it.
mm,
And yeah, I think too often we get so caught up in what we should be doing. Often it's because it's what we saw our parents do or our siblings do or what our friends do. And yeah, so many people don't stop and just go, what do I want to do? And give
mm,
themselves permission to just go and do that. And so I'd love to know because, as you said, the ego comes into play, and often we've got our blinkers on and we are very guided by what we know and the experiences that we had growing up and those around us. Da 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 da. I'd love to know. You mentioned you dove into personal development, like what that looked like for you, because I'd imagine coming from someone that went to uni and was going down that route, deciding to do life coaching, I'd imagine that a lot came up for you. So I'd love to know how you worked through that big shift and how you gave yourself permission to dream big and really make that decision that you were going to control your life.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know what, when you sort of said, oh, you'd love to know what that kind of personal development looked like, it's funny because actually thinking back, I'm like, what did that look like, right? Like, what did that period of my life look like? And I think for me, the major thing that kind of, I suppose, started this journey was like the beginning of 2020, where the world was starting to change as well. And I think there was part of that, like, I have to say that a part of the switch for me was also because life had switched at that moment. And there was a very sudden change for everyone. People were at home, people were kind of realizing like what they wanted. I mean, I loads of people, once they'd spent time in furlough and stuff, and not in that like routine, I suppose, like that kind of continuous routine, that continuous, like, you go to work, you come home, you chill, you go to bed, you go to work, like that sort of kind of breaking free from that, like, for a short period of time, like, definitely made a difference to me. And I definitely have to say that was a part of that journey where actually I just had that kind of switch of, like, it was almost like I woke up like I woke up and thought, hang on a minute, like, what do I want? Like, where am I going? And it was solely having the time to reflect on that. And I think that is the biggest thing, is like, okay, yes, we're not in a pandemic now, and like life has sort of gone back to normal for so many, but you can still give yourself that space. You can still give your space to give yourself that space to sit and be with those thoughts, and be with your own intuition, right? Because essentially all that time period did for me was allow myself that time to be there, to be with myself and understand myself and understand my desires. But we can all create that. Like, we all get so kind of caught up with like, oh, I don't have time, or like coming back from work and we have so much to do, people want to go to the gym, people want to eat healthy, cook nice meals, blah, blah, blah. And there's this feeling of like, oh, there's no time for me, right? But it's actually choosing to prioritize yourself and be with yourself and understand yourself. It's making the time for that. And that doesn't have to be like hours and like long, evening routines where you journal on what you want and all of this. I mean, it can, if that lights you up and you enjoy it, but the likelihood is you're going to feel resistance to doing that at the start, right? So really it's about kind of understanding that you're going to feel like you don't want to do it because that's your ego kind of being like, no, don't do this, don't sit and start dreaming. But actually, like, give yourself that space and that time to sit and do it, because that's going to be the life-changing kind of moment for you, where you've actually just almost stopped that monotony for a second. And that honestly was the biggest thing, I think, is stopping that routine and stopping that monotony. Everything just shut down for a second, but it allowed me to go with it. It allowed me to start exploring interests and to start looking at my own like spirituality. I always felt like I was kind of like a spiritual person, like in this, in like the generic sense. Like I always felt, oh, maybe there was something more. And like I always kind of was very intuitive and empathetic, that's the right word, empathic, in terms of like feeling energy and stuff, but I didn't understand it, like I didn't know about it. So really it was like following the little crumbs or like along the way. And actually I started looking into spirituality a little bit more. I started looking into like concepts like the universe, and like I started reading different books and listening to different podcasts, and then, you know, that led to another one, and then that led to another one, and then I started obviously really getting into manifestation then. But really that was through, you know, books and podcasts and courses. I just started surrounding myself about this knowledge because I absolutely loved it. It was like a whole world has suddenly been opened up to me because I allowed myself to start dreaming. And then one thing led to another, and yeah, and I just kind of followed that and followed what I was feeling called to read, follow what I was feeling called to listen to, and trusting that I was always being guided to like the right things, and thinking like there's a reason I'm being guided to this podcast right now, there's a reason I'm being guided to pick up this book right now, and trusting that and just going with it. And honestly, like life gets so magical when you start like living it that way, or you start thinking, I'm being pulled for this for a reason, let's go for it.
Well, that's it, right? You just open up a door and it will lead you to another one and another one and another one. But while ever you're like vibrating at a frequency that's down here, you're not going to notice the podcast episodes. You're not going to notice that course. Not going to notice these opportunities that are going to lead you to that direction. And, you know, it's like really that turning that reticular activating system on, and just like, yeah, it's crazy once you do kind of start to evolve into this person, how that evolution continues. It's crazy. I'm going through a stage at the moment where I'm looking for a new mentor to work with. Every single day on my Instagram, a new ad will pop up, or, you know, I'll listen to a podcast about, and they'll interview someone, and they do a riff on a mentorship that they're opening the doors up for. And you just start to notice these things once you've turned that switch and you've decided that that's kind of where you want to go. Yeah, so I love that. Now, I'd love to know your journey from when you decided to start your business to where you are now. And because I know manifestation is your jam, how you've been able to use manifestation to create the results in your business that you now have.
Yeah, absolutely. God, these are such great questions, but you know, you feel like I could, oh my goodness, I could go on for ages with these questions. Like, yeah, from where I started to now, I think that for me, obviously, I've always been really passionate about teaching manifestation in a way that's like really accessible, like really like simplified, easy to understand and digest, but also kind of help people realize about the holistic view of manifestation, right? Like manifestation isn't just, you know, the 3-6-9 method, or like 5-5-5, of doing those like simple tools that like are thrown around on like the internet and TikTok and stuff like that. Like manifestation is so much more in depth, like there's so much science behind it, like the power of the subconscious mind is just incredible. And I think that is truly what I get absolutely lit up about. So it was like, really, for me, it was truly mastering that on my own level. Like I said at the start about kind of understanding the ego, the difference between your ego and your intuition. It was truly kind of becoming my own like first client, if that makes sense. Like truly understanding myself, my own kind of mechanisms, how my brain worked, how I was creating reality, but also how I was therefore maybe bringing into reality stuff that I was probably not wanting to, for example, right? Like why something felt easy to manifest or something else felt harder, and truly break that down. And actually for me now, what I'm passionate and what I teach is really helping women to kind of understand that on such a like bigger spectrum, to like really understanding how their thoughts, their feelings, their behaviors are linked, how their habits are kind of perpetuating their life, right? And so kind of mastering that for on my own, in my own personal life, was definitely the first thing for me, and truly kind of integrating that and understanding like what worked and what resonated for me, and helping other women with that as well. And I think truly, I think you mentioned kind of what was like the biggest thing in terms of like how to create results. And I think for me, it was truly obviously implementing that. So therefore understanding who I needed to be, right? Like on an embodiment level. And this is now what I kind of teach and share so much about, is the fact that for us to truly manifest, and us to truly call in everything that we really, really want and we really, really desire for ourselves, it's solely about being that version of you that is holding it at an energetic level, at a vibrational level, but at a mindset level. The way you behave, the habits you have, like all of those things like matter, right? And I think there's kind of people kind of like a misconception, sorry, that where like people think, well, if I'm just like thinking about it, I'm thinking about it and it's going to happen. But it's like, no, there's so much more to it than that. You've got to really tap into who you're being, tap into the energy that you're holding, tap into the type of actions that you're actually taking or not taking more often than not, right? Like a massive thing on my journey that I discovered in myself was how my behaviors were completely different to like what I felt like I was being, right? So like how I thought I was thinking, how I thought I was feeling. And then actually I was like, I really looked at my behaviors and I was like, hang on a minute, like I'm behaving like I don't have a successful business. I'm behaving like I don't have money, or I don't have clients, or whatever, right? Especially like at the early days of my business, while I was still kind of integrating this knowledge. And it was kind of picking that apart and going, hang on a minute, what am I seeing here? What am I seeing in my reality? What behaviors are kind of continuing to repeat themselves, right? Because any behavior, any pattern, not even just behavior, but any pattern that you see in your life, whether, you have money and you lose it, you have money and you lose it, or like you get clients, right? And then suddenly you have like a dry patch for like months, right? Like any patterns that you're seeing are clues. And for me, it was kind of really understanding that, like, actually, hang on a minute, so what patterns am I seeing in my own behaviors, and how is this creating my life? So I definitely think, yeah, going back to like manifestation and creating results, it's solely about really understanding how you can embody that version of you who holds that life, and taking those steps to not only like feel into it and be kind of an energetic match, but actually do it. Actually take those inspired actions, because we want to do the stuff that feels good, right? It's nice to visualize and it's nice to kind of imagine how you want your life to look, right? And actually that kind of feels good, like, but also the ego loves that, because if you're sitting there visualizing, the ego thinks, oh well, you're not actually changing, right? It makes us feel good, but actually it's really kind of then taking action on that and going, actually no, I'm going to take action on being who I need to be. And for me, I mean, as simple as the fact that, like, right at the start of my business, for example, I'd never would have gone on a podcast. And it's not because I didn't have like things to share or value to talk about. It was just because right at the start of my business, like now, for example, I wasn't being like the biz babe that I wanted to be, right? I was, I very much at the start, which I think so many other biz babes probably relate to. When you first start out, there's this feeling of like you're almost pretending to be a biz babe, but actually it's that mentality and it's that mindset that kind of screws you over. Because if you always think that you're pretending, you're not really doing this thing, you're not really getting clients or whatever, right, you're just going to perpetuate that reality, when in actual fact, when you embody who you need to be and you change on an identity level, like that's the key. That is truly how you start creating results, because you are changing at your core, rather than just trying to manifest the results on the outside. You're actually starting from within, because when you change within, then you can see actual outward changes in your reality as well.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I completely agree. I saw the biggest shifts in my business when I just stepped into the shoes of the person that would have the money, have the clients, have the house. Like when you take a look at what you just said, your behaviors and your patterns, it does become so clear. You're like, wait a minute, yes, I sit and look at my vision board every day and I meditate and I do all of that, but I'm not acting like I've got all the money, because when it comes to money, I'm scarce. I'm watching how I spend. So that you wouldn't behave that way if you had all that money that you're sitting there visualizing about. And so I think once you really do pay attention to those behaviors, I completely agree that gap between where you are now and where you want to be becomes so clear. And I just love the term, like, are you energetically able to hold the money, hold the clients, hold the results? Because again, it's one thing to dream and have this huge vision, but are you the person that can hold that money and hold the results? And I heard that word again today on a podcast. I was like, I just love that word, because it really does just embody what this is about. Like, energetically being able to hold the results that you desire is a completely different thing that a lot of people forget about. A lot of people just decide what they want, but they don't actually take the action to be that person that has that the money, the clients, and all of that. I just love that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what so many people get like almost like caught up, because they're not being the version that can hold that, right? And then like a simple fact is like the universe will only send you what you're really ready for. And if it doesn't think that you're actually able to hold that space for X amount of clients, I think like we almost forget, like, of course that's why we haven't received it then. Because I mean, I think a lot of people will think, oh, I'd love, like, start my business and like have like, I don't know, 10, 20 clients, right? But actually, like, they forget, like, well, what does that actually look like? What would that be like to hold that amount of people and that amount of energy? And actually, are you an energetic match to hold that? Do you actually want that? Right. And that's where you sort of really dive deep into actually like who you're being and what you're available for. Because obviously, we said, we dream all day, but then it's actually breaking that down and be like, what are you really, really able to hold space for right now? And how can you expand yourself to be able to start holding space for more? If you're at where you're at right now and you want more, how can you start expanding yourself to become a match for that and allow that to come into your life as well?
Because that's another thing, right? You might either you're not bringing the results in because you're not able to hold that, or you do bring it in and then you self-sabotage. The money comes in, but then you find ways to spend it, or you get a parking fine, or that it comes in but then it goes out again, and you're not actually able to create that momentum in the business or continue to create more and more and more in your bank accounts until you're able to be that person. I love, and again, I completely appreciate that this is probably what your 10-week mentorship is all about, because there's so much involved when it comes to this stuff. But I'd love if you could just touch on how the advice you give to those who are ready to embody, and how they can start to embrace that version of them that wants the money, the clients, the business. Like, some tips that you can give someone to start to step into those shoes even before the results are in their reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you're so right. Like manifestation, as I said at the start, is like so much bigger. Like, of course we can really, really simplify it, but often why it's so difficult for so many is because of the other kind of universal laws and the complexities of it, and what's going on with you and your subconscious mind that you're so not consciously aware of, right? Like, as I said on my journey many times, when I wasn't aware of things that I was doing, and then obviously was then able to kind of make those changes. Yeah, sorry. I went off on one and then forgot your question.
Yeah, so just how they can embrace the person they want to be. Yeah.
Yes, there we go. I started looking outside and I was like just looking into the sky, and I was thinking about like, oh yeah, like I love this stuff, and then I forgot the question.
And then I was going to say, and this is when you're passionate about a topic, when you can just go off and off and off, and you're like, wait, what was the question again?
Yeah. Okay. Embracing and being that version, right? Yeah. So in the first instance, right, the very, very first instance of what you can do is simply work out who that version is. So it's thinking about like looking at yourself right now, looking at where you want to be, allow yourself to dream, but actually start jotting down certain things that version of you would be doing, would be thinking. I think like go really, really broad. So like, what type of beliefs would that version of you have, right? Like if right now, you're believing like, things are really hard in business, like I'm not getting clients, I'm not getting money. Well, actually, like the version of you want to be, whether that's like your 10K self, your 100K self, like serving X amount of clients, whatever, like what would she believe, right? Because then that's one major difference that you can see right now, clear as day. Oh my God, you're not even aligned with your beliefs, right? And obviously, of course, your beliefs will like filter in, drip feed into the types of thoughts that you have every day. I mean, you probably like heard, I can't remember what the actual figure is, but we have something like, I think it's like 40,000 or up to 40,000 or 60,000 like thoughts a day. And they're always often like 90% like repetitive and like same as the day before, right? So we're having these kind of repetitive thoughts all the time, and we're thinking like the same things day in, day out, right? And then, we wake up one day and we hope to suddenly like see a change, right? We're kind of acting the way we've always acted, being the way we've always been, thinking the way we've always thought, and then expecting our lives to change. So in actual fact, the first thing is thinking, well, how would this person think? How would this person I want to be like show up? Like, what would her day look like? And I think there's so often that I see where people kind of tried this task and they've gone, okay, well, she would have, you know, loads of like spare time in her day where she would be relaxing and she would be like, you know, reading books, like, because clients are just flowing into her life and all of this. And I'm like, yeah, I totally hear you. And I'm so there for that. But then it's like, it's being careful that you don't fall prey to your ego kind of now, right? So, you know, they say, oh, like, be like that version. So then I've seen, and I've had this in the past with clients as well, where they start being that version and they start sitting there and they start like chilling, like relaxing, you know, being like the version, right? But then it's like, oh, hang on a minute. Really what's going on there is they fall and prey to their ego and thinking like, oh, well, I don't need to do anything and my life is going to change, right? So it's actually thinking about the types of things that you can actually action, right? So really think, well, how are they living their lives? Of course, you know, you can have more room for more play, for more relaxation, for more reading. Definitely bring that into your life. But what you want to do is get that balance where you're actually taking a lot of the actions as well that actually aligned with how she shows up and how she would be, right? So for example, like, I mean, even like I said with this podcast interview, like if you're thinking, right, well, my 10K self would, you know, put herself out there. She would be like doing lives with people on Instagram, or she would be, you know, going on podcast interviews, or she would be like writing a book, right? You know, you can start doing those sort of like behaviors and actions like right now, even if you're like right at the start of your business, right? And you think, well, I haven't, you know, made money or I haven't made like clients yet. It's like, no, this is the work, right? It's embodying the version of you who has and is being that. So start showing up as that, start doing those things, start thinking, how would she be? How would she do, right? How would she act? And really truly bridging that gap. Because once you kind of have a list of everything that like she's doing, so you're like, right, she's got these types of thoughts, she's believing these types of things, like her day to day would look like this. Maybe you've got like 5 things on there and you think, well, definitely 2 and 3 of those I can action right now. And you look at those patterns, and you also look at the patterns of like, well, where is there discrepancy? Like, where are you right now? Like, what are you doing right now? How are you showing up? What's your morning routine like? Have you made any time for yourself? Have you actually, you know, made time to sit and like journal or meditate and etc.? And you know, you get those 2 lists and you can see like clearly where you're not that version, where you're not being that version and not embodied in that version. And you can start to kind of get yourself a new list of like, right, this is what I'm dedicated to, right? What I love to do. And actually I still do now, right? Every now and then, if I feel myself like, if I've slipped more into my ego, or I've let certain like routines slip, you know, this is so normal, right? Like no one is perfect. No one has got their like A game all the time. Like we're all on a journey, right? It's so normal. It's always practicing kindness, like to yourself first and foremost. But yeah, what I tend to do if I notice like, hang on a minute, I don't know if I'm being the version I need to be, I'll get my list and then I will write like at least, you know, like 3 to 5 things that I'm like, right, this is my focus now. I'm going to be doing this type of habit, for example, this type of behavior. I'm going to be focusing on my morning routine again. I'm going to be focusing like, even as well, like, you know, I go on about the holistic approach, but like what I'm putting in my body has a massive impact on like my entire vibration and my mindset, as like, and in general, a lot of other people's as well. Like when I'm fueling myself with like not negative food, that's no food is negative, but I'm fueling myself with food that's perhaps not as nutrition or nutritious, I should say. Yeah, like when I'm doing stuff like that, like I really notice that my vibration, I'm much more sluggish and I'm not really on my like A game. And then I think, well, that's a simple change that I can make now that's going to help me embody the version of who I actually want to be. And what happens is you start at the first, you kind of have that resistance. You start to think, oh, like this is hard. Like this feels difficult. This feels like not normal. And you know, that's completely normal. Like it's completely okay, right? Because at the end of the day, like no change is going to feel good at the start. Like no change is going to, it's not like you're going to wake up and you're completely perfect with this. But you know, you make those small subtle changes, just the way you start showing up for yourself, the way you show up in yourself, the way you show up day to day, and that will be compounding. Like it might not feel like it, but you do that for like 30 days, you have suddenly like catapulted yourself far more like closer to being the version of you who is holding the clients and the money and everything else that you want than you were 30 days prior.
I love that. And I love that you've just emphasized that it's just little daily things that you can do daily that is going to make the biggest difference. And I know I get a lot of clients that come to me as well, and they're just, they think there's such a big gap between where they are now and the version that they want to step into, when really there doesn't have to be. And I'm sure you do this with your clients too, but my favorite thing is just for them to script out a day in the life of the version that they want to be, right down to the simple things, and then going back and actually just circling, which is kind of what you've just said, anything that they can do from tomorrow. And there's usually so much on that list. You don't need to be earning $10,000 per month to do so many things on that list. You don't need to be working with hundreds of clients to do so many things on that list. But the hundreds of clients and the $10,000 months will come once you just make these small daily changes. And, you know, and like you said, it's just about doing things every day, like a 2% shift will always send you in a brand new direction. And just knowing that there's just so much you can do from now before everything is here. And yeah, I guess it's just really capturing the fact that when you feel good, you do more good. And I love that you brought in just simple things like what you eat. I completely agree with that. I've had family up for 2 weeks and it's been amazing, but I've slipped out of my routines. I haven't been eating the best. And I've just noticed that I'm not showing up in business how I know I do when I am really looking after myself. So I think it's just so important to be conscious of the factors that come into play with what's influencing your results, and just really being mindful of that. Yeah. And I just love that you have that holistic approach as well.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with what you said, literally. Like, and I've had periods of time where I've done that as well. And just it's being kind to yourself and knowing like that happens to everyone. Like not just you, but like anyone else listening who's going through it or like has had periods where they've slept right. You know, like the way I always think about it, which always makes me kind of smile, because I think for some reason it's easier to think of it this way. But it's like, what like fitness coach, like, do you know, like even think of like Joe Wicks, right? There's been times where Joe Wicks does not have abs. Like there is times where he's let himself go, life's got busy, and he's not on like his perfect form, right? And it's okay. It's like, it's normal and it's a part of the journey. And like there's going to be times where we're not on our like best spiritual form, and it's okay. But it's like coming back to yourself and realizing, but why did I do this? Like why do I have spiritual routines in the first place? Why do I do this? Why do I like doing that? Because essentially, you know, we like to look after ourselves because then we start to feel better. It's the same with him. It's, you know, it's not about necessarily the abs, but actually the abs are a result of him looking after himself and putting in the effort and putting in the time to work out. And it's just the same with your mindset and your kind of spiritual hygiene is about putting in that time to work that, because in the end you're gonna feel so much better for it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It is so worth it. It's like, yeah, if I slip off the bandwagon with my mindset work, it makes the biggest difference. It's why I'm such a big advocate for it. Now to wrap us up, I would love for you to share, and I love to do this with other women. If you could give your, you know, self when you first started your business a piece of advice, or, you know, a lesson that you have learned throughout your journey in business and your personal development journey, what would that be? And I know there's probably so many things, but I would love to know what you would go back and tell yourself, or, you know, just one really big juicy piece of advice for women who are in the earlier stages of their business or who are facing the blocks, you know, just based on the lessons that you've had yourself.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, how to pick just one. But I think like I suppose it's completely like linked to what we've been saying today. but it's probably not as juicy as people want to hear, but it's definitely like get help, get support to help you look within, right? Because, you know, we've all got that subconscious programming that is kind of sneaking into our lives and affecting how we show up, affecting how we approach life, how who we are being. And it's not always easy to unpack that on your own. I mean, so many people, you know, go and do like courses and experience that, and or read books, for example, trying to do it on their own, right? Trying to kind of understand what's going on for them. But, you know, that can work for some really, really well. But actually, it's like it's kind of getting that more specialized help or more tailored support that you would get in some courses, right? Where actually it's helping you to fully look within yourself. It's providing that kind of mirror into your subconscious and mirror into your soul, because there's going to be so much that's just kind of under the surface, really, that, you know, like we hear about a lot of like common like limiting beliefs, right? Things like, you know, not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy, not feeling lovable. Like those are like 3 really, really deep core beliefs, but so many of us aren't aware of like all these other limiting beliefs that are connected but massively like impacting our lives. Like I actually did a podcast episode on this about how like some seemingly like harmless beliefs, like things like always thinking that you never have enough time, like seemingly harmless, but has like so much impact on how you show up in your day to day and how you show up in your week and how you show up in your life. And I think it's sort of realizing, actually, hang on a minute, like there's so much more going on the surface. Like if I'm not where I want to be, why is that? Like something's got to change here. Like is it my mindset? Is it my habits that I'm continually doing, like the way I'm showing up, whether it's good or bad, right? Is it in my beliefs? You know, it's getting the support to look within and get the help with that, so you can like get that the hell out, uproot that, change that, and actually get on with living the life that you actually want to live. Because you can spend so long, and I've done it, I'm sure, like maybe you can relate, where, you know, you've probably gone through periods where you're like, oh, like something's not changing, and maybe like I used to be like too proud, like I would like always think like, oh, I can do it myself, I can Google it, or I can get through it, right? And like I think that's like a mentality, and it's a very like British thing as well, like stiff upper lip, like come on, let's get on with it, we can do it ourselves. And actually just reaching out and getting that help and getting that support with that sort of stuff will be life-changing. And that is what I would say to myself, is get that. I would have gotten that help sooner for me.
I completely agree with that, because there are so many layers to strip back that we just have no idea about, because a lot of these are, it's unconscious to us, it's subconscious. We don't even really know how much this is influencing us. And you know, some of it goes right back to before the ages of 7. So we just put it so far back that we don't even realize that these are beliefs that we carry around and that are influencing how we act and behave and the state of mind that we have. And because it's so deep, often the meditation and the journaling and the stuff that we can do on our own doesn't strip back those layers quite enough. So I completely agree with that. My business shifted massively. My mindset shifted massively when I just reached out to a mentor and just worked with someone who could help me strip back those layers, because, you know, we are who we are for so long as well. Like, if, you know, a lot of women are in their 20s, 30s, you've been a certain way for so long. So naturally it's going to take a little bit of groundwork to step into someone new, but you can definitely get there. It's just about stripping back those layers. I love that. All right. Well, to finish us off, this has been incredible. And I know so many women are going to take so much away from this in terms of manifestation, but as well as just your journey to getting you to where you are now, and, you know, the shifts that you've implemented, and just simplifying this. I think they're going to find this a really simple and easy to follow episode. They're going to love you and they're going to want to find you. So I'm going to put this all in the show notes, but if you could just let them know where they can find you and how they can connect with you. And I know you've got your academy. So yeah, what's all that about?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can mainly find me on Instagram. That's where I hang out the most, and that's where I share like daily tips on manifestation and all that juicy stuff. So that's at @Samantha_sis. And then you can also find me via email at hello@sheersamantha.com if you just want to reach out and have a chat. And you know, my DMs and my emails are always open if you're a biz babe who just kind of wants to open that conversation about what's going on and type of support that you feel like you may or or may not need. And I'm always open to chatting about that as well. And then, yes, of course, I've got my 10-week manifestation academy. She is a holistic manifester, of course, because I love the holistic approach to manifestation. So if you are interested in that, yes, you can DM me, and we can explore that as an option for you. Or yes, you can apply with the link in the show notes as well.
Thank you so much. Well, yeah, I will definitely link all of this below. Go and check her out. Yeah, I just love your tips, and you really simplify manifestation, and I just love the way you present all of this. So, thank you so much for being on the show. I've absolutely loved this, and yeah, thank you for being a part of this empowering series. Just helping other women in business do their thing and create amazing results as they all deserve. So, yeah, thank you for your little insights.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, guys. Bye.